our empowered faculty and staff utilize their respected skills to serve as student advocates for the whole child.
At Taylor ISD, we believe every student has unique potential and shall engage in opportunities to grow in a safe environment through multiple approaches to learning.
In Taylor ISD, we believe families are partners who will be informed and supported in the educational process to help students discover their unique potential.
In Taylor ISD, we believe superintendent, district leaders are forward-thinking, strategic, and the sensible partners to our community that empower staff to help students achieve their unique potential.
At Taylor ISD, we believe the Board of Trustees is a collaborative team anchored in tradition with a vision towards the future and a connection to the community, inspiring exceptional workplaces and excellence in student outcome.
In Taylor ISD, we believe our accessible campus leaders foster community relationships and demonstrate effective communication, servant leadership, and instructional leadership to guide faculty and staff toward our vision.
Our mission: inspire, equip, and empower every student to achieve their unique potential with a vision of intentionally empowering the whole child. Thank you, trustees. Next on our agenda is our recognitions. This is our favorite part of the agenda. So, Trustee Sylvia, you'll join me in front of the
I was
dais.
going to say, go ahead down to the front. We'll get started. All right, first up this evening, we would like to wish a congratulations to our Duck Special Olympics 2024 basketball team. So the 2024 basketball team would head towards the front. Next up, we would like to congratulate our Duck Special Olympics 2024 flag football team. Do we have anybody from our Duck flag football team? All right, on to the next one. We'd like to congratulate our Duck Special Olympics 2024 track and field team. All right.
No, not going to.
Next up, we'd like to congratulate our Duck Special Olympics 2024 powerlifting team.
Oh, yeah.
Good job.
And last but not least, a special congratulations to our Duck Special Olympics 2024 bowling team. All right, let's give one more hand to our Special Olympics all. Next up, we'd like to recognize our high-placing livestock showers for the 2023 and 24 school year. We have Heather Hines, who was Reserve Championship Chickens WCLA. Next up, we have Hunter Voigt, First Place Steer WCLA. we have Colton Voigt, 5th place steer, Houston, made the sale.
Congratulations.
Next, we would like to honor our varsity winter guard. They were 2nd place state in best overall general effect score. So I'll call your name and y'all can just come around. We have Jamie Orojo, Angie Avias, Melanie Padilla, Lily Davy, Lily Estrada, Lana Flanders, Sadie Gonzalez, Lainey Goslin, Rebecca Hart, Sanaya Jackson, Nico Milton, Alexa Sanchez, Brooke Schweiger, Shiloh Scott, Rose Simmons, and Zari Thompson.
Congratulations.
Wake up, Swanton! Our color guard leader. Last up, we have our Taylor High School boys regional qualifier. Congratulations to our Taylor High School 4x200 meter relay team. We have Andreas Fisher, Treos Richardson, Josh Miklinchek, and Jackson Miller.
Yeah, there.
Well, it doesn't look like So congratulations to all our student recognitions. Thank you.
All right.
Terry.
Oh, they're out today. Yeah. That's where Kim is today with all the Special Olympics. Yeah. Whoever's still on the chair. Oh, let's get out of here before the more. Good job.
Don't believe there are any public comments, so we'll move on. At this time, we'll start the reports of the Board of Trustees. First is review of INS tax rate. Mr. Whiteheller?
Good evening, board members, superintendent Dan Weigmiller with Specialized Public Finance. I'm here tonight just working through the budget process to talk a little bit about the debt service component of the tax rate, and in working with Jenna on looking at numbers and understanding the last bond election that you had and the bonds that were issued, and a lot of the anticipated revenue and growth that was to come from Samsung and other elements of growth. What we look at on the debt side, we're stair-stepping up to a higher payment, but we're also looking to the future. We didn't push the payments up, betting on all the growth that was projected. So overall, what we're looking at least on the debt service tax rate side, is at this point recommending to hold that rate at where it's at least for another year. It'll give you time, number one, to step into that slightly higher bond payment that was scheduled. We wanted to not anticipate things too quick. And then the other piece is, as your district changes and grows, any other future needs, we want to make sure we plan on that and not have the tax rate on debt roller coaster up and down for you. You've lowered it over, I think it was 5 or 6 times now. The total rate, the debt service periodically has come down as well. And what we talked about with Jenna and superintendent is just managing that. So when you get certified rolls in July, we'll look again closer when you come close to setting that tax rate. But right now our thought is to hold that debt rate where it's at for another year to allow, one, you always have the flexibility to pay off debt early. And so, like I said, some of the growth that was projected, we didn't bet on that, so we'll have opportunities to pay off debt early if you do set it at this level and collect a little more than what's scheduled. That was by plan. We just didn't want to have the reverse and have you look at having a tax rate that's higher. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have on that, and then once again also come back as certified roles present themselves. I'll be a resource to help set that rate.
Any questions? Mr. Whitmiller, I think we're good to go.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the demographic study presentation.
Okay, good evening, board members, superintendent. My name is Chris Poole, and I'm with Population and Survey Analysts, and we recently completed the demographic study for the district. I've also got Susan Cates and Tiffany Thomas Rogers here from our office, and you'll be hearing both from me and from Susan tonight a little bit about the binder that you guys have in front of you. This is the study that we've recently completed. It's taken us about 4 or 5 months to do the work for the district, and we hope to just give you a bit of an overview tonight, sort of explain the process, a little bit of our findings, and then tell you the next steps sort of moving forward. Can everybody hear me? I hear air conditioning, so I want to I'm projecting well enough. So PASA has been in existence since about 1980, and we work exclusively for school districts, and we typically are working, our major clients are those that are growing very rapidly, that are needing to site new facilities, plan for new facilities, design attendance zones, and so forth. And so we do these studies really for a lot of our clients annually because things change every time. But we start by collecting background data. This is a little bit of an understanding of our approach. We use a little bit of census data. We build a very large map, a great map. This is about a quarter of the size of the map, and we've got copies back here. We moved and we had them spread out here, but we were afraid we were taking up seats. So we've got, I think what you'll find to be a very extensive map that I hope is very useful to the district. So many times I see it on administrators' walls, push pins and sticky notes and all that sort of thing. We have copies of those. They're back here with plans. We have about a dozen of those copies or so available for everybody. And so one of the things that we put in that background data, we get ownership from the appraisal district. We have cited the existing subdivisions, the existing apartment complexes, future land use. Everything is labeled on there, your current schools and so forth. So I hope it's going to help you guys out a lot. We also study housing and economic data. Of course, the economic data in the district is of utmost importance here with everything that's planned and coming for the district. We look at the current the current student population. We download district data from the district and we geocode those students. You'll see those here in a little bit. And we do a lot with the data. They pop up like little dots all over the map. So most of the students that you'll have next year are already here. And so we have to understand what is going on with those students. Then we create student projections that are district-wide. We use a low, a moderate, and a high growth scenario. And we use the moderate growth scenario for all of our planning purposes. And then the last step, of course, is that we provide planning because the district is going to need to buy land and make plans for future facilities as these new rooftops will be coming on the ground. So we'll start here with just a little bit about demographic trends. This is a look at the 5-year numerical change in enrollment in your region. And this is 2017 to 2022. The PEIMS data for 23 came out maybe a month or so ago. And so we're getting all of that incorporated into our data set. But of course, Taylor ISD actually has lost some students over that time period. The enrollment has been relatively flat. We'll talk a little bit about that and the why for that here in just a second. But what is most important to me is to look at the colors here that are outside of the major metro area. Inside there in the ivory, you've got, mainly Austin ISD, of course, and that's losing student population. But everything on the outside is growing. It's everything in the blue and the maroon. We work actually for 6 of the top 11 districts there that are on that list. So we're very familiar with the goings and comings of everyone in the region. And so I would expect you guys to go from that loss and pop up into the blue and maroon here relatively quickly. This is just a graphical representation. Like I said, you lost a little bit of student population here in the last few years. So that, a lot of that is your kindergarten, and we'll talk about how birth rates play into that. What we can do is we can get birth data by zip code of the birth mother. And so we can get that from the state, and then we take that data and we move it forward 5 years and line it up with your kindergarten. And so that gives us a little bit of an understanding of what's been going on and maybe what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And so the district, say in 2019, had births that were numbering like 224, 240, that sort of thing. Kind of pre-pandemic, we sort of need to throw out the 20 and 21 data because it was a wreck for everybody. But at this point, the numbers are like 190, next year 175. And so that is causing a little bit of an offset for the growth that is coming in, that is starting to go ahead and come into the district. And for the next couple of years, we're looking at really 175 in 2024, and with it sort of rebounding a little bit in the last couple of years of the data we can get our hands on still. So we're expecting that birth rate to drive a lower kindergarten. It's driven a lower kindergarten here in the last couple of years. We would expect it to drive a lower kindergarten for another year or two, and then see that uptick. And then, of course, as you have new homes come in, that would be an additional thing on top of the birth rate. So I'll move on a little bit to looking at past and current students. I mentioned that we will download student data from the district, and we geocode them, we assign them by latitude, longitude, coordinate, blah, 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 little dots. And so what you can see here is we download actually several years worth of data because we need to understand where the kids are today, and in your existing subdivisions, what is going on in those subdivisions. When you look at your K through 4, how does that matriculate up to 1 through 5? Are you gaining? Are you losing a little bit? And so we can do a lot of things with that data. You can see here, it's a little hard to see on this screen, but any place you can see a maroon dot means that that student is new and was not existing here in the 2020 to 2021 data. It shows a little bit of the density, but this, of course, is going to be changing really rapidly for you guys. One of the most important things that we do with that data is we develop a ratio of students per home. Because when we make projections for a district that is having a lot of rooftops come out of the ground, we have to be right on when the homes are going to be built and where they're going to be built and how many kids are going to result from that. How many students, not kids, there's a difference. How many students are going to result from that? And so if you ask anybody how many kids are in an average family, you'll probably say 2. I've got 2. One's in college, one's about to graduate, so I'm about to actually count as a 0 when it comes to how many kids, how many students would be enrolled in the school district from my home. And so actually right now for the average for single family homes in your district is a 0.41. And that's actually quite low. It's relatively low, and it's quite similar to the number of students that are resulting in the multifamily complex that you guys have. Now, that's the average, but it varies widely. And so as soon as we create the average, we throw it away because for each individual type of development that's going to occur in the district, we assign a specific ratio to that. It may be that we use a ratio from another subdivision in your district. It may be that we use a ratio from another subdivision that's outside of your district that is just similarly situated or with a similar builder because we have an enormous data set at this point. But like right now, even though you have a 0.41, in the district you've got a couple of areas downtown where that ratio is 1.04 and 1.08. But you've got a handful of subdivisions, Apache Springs, Brickmeyer, Hills of Mesting Creek, that are below 0.1 students per household. So even in the district right now, it's an average of 0.41, but it varies very widely. And so that's a large data set that we can draw on to assign those ratios of students per home for the future. Now, when we look at for the new subdivisions, a couple that are developing right now, we've got Dove Pass and Frame Switch, and they're a 0.63 and a 0.67. And so for so many of our clients that are suburban sorts of clients, that ratio really is 0.6, 0.7. Really the highest that I see it normally on an average is somewhere in that 0.7. Sometimes we've done some work down in the valley. Sometimes some of those subdivisions are over 1. And there are a few in the Katy area that are over 1. But by and large, I would expect it ultimately to settle around 0.7 maybe, which is pretty similar to what you guys have here. A lot of times when a new subdivision comes in, people will move in with a 3-year-old. And And so that ratio may start at a 0.63, may creep up a little bit as some of those younger students go ahead and work their way into the school system. That's a very important part of our job is assessing those ratios. Another thing that is also very important to a lot of our clients, and it's much less important to you guys, charter and private schools and then homeschooling, of course. Why are students leaving and how many students are leaving and where are they going out from your district? And honestly here, the charters and the privates is not a large number. You can see here, we've got just a little bit of enrollment here. If you don't have any charter schools in the district itself, we try very, very very hard to keep up with everything that we can for the charter schools, but they can pop up overnight. The charter schools that you all have that are affecting the district, it's in very small numbers. They are in sort of Round Rock and Georgetown. We contact as many of those as we can. We download data from TEA and work with that. TEA also masks a bunch of data. If the numbers are small, if there are only a few students that are coming from your district into one of those, it's just going to tell us it's fewer than 10. We don't know if it's 1 or if it's 9. But we do get that data and try to look at it. One thing that you guys do have, in not insignificant numbers, is students transferring out to other ISDs, other traditional ISDs. And again, the data is very masked, but I did look it up, and there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 90 that are moving out to Rawl ISD. We've got in the vicinity of 20 or 25 out to Copeland ISD, and then we've got Granger, Hutto, Gerald, Manor, Pflugerville, Rockdale, kind of it runs the gamut. Everybody else is fewer than 10, and again, I don't know if it's 1 or if it's 9, out to some of these other districts. And so there's a little bit of that, but with so many of our clients, the charter schools really are something that we have to watch, because when a charter school comes in, that can take students immediately from the school district. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Susan to talk about economics and housing, and then I'll be back here at the end to talk a little bit about student projections.
Good evening, Superintendent and Board. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about the economy and the housing. That is a huge factor with the growth that is coming to Taylor. So starting with the economy, I think you all know that Taylor is in a position of having a growing economy. Low unemployment, high job creation numbers. Job creation numbers have completely rebounded post-pandemic with over 46,000 more jobs in the county since the third quarter of 2020. Population is growing in the region, seeing 13.3% increase between 2020 and 2023. And that high growth in the tech sector that's being led by Samsung and their supply chain companies is leading the growth in Taylor. Population growth moving out from those first and second tiers of suburban rings around Austin are also, that growth was coming anyway, but Samsung is definitely accelerating that growth. One cooling factor that we are experiencing across the nation is the impact of interest rates on housing in our communities. That 2 years ago, that sub 3% rate that we enjoyed is now, over the past 12 to 18 months, creeping up close to 8%. In fact, in October of 2023, that number was 7.78%. With median home prices in Taylor ISD being between $300,000 and $350,000, that means $800 a month difference in a mortgage payment. And that is a significant deterrent for people's ability to buy a home in the district. The impact is most noticeable in the resale of existing homes. If you have an empty nester that normally would say, okay, I don't need my large family home and I'm going to move to something smaller and let a family come into that existing home, that's not happening now because they would have to pay more to have less home. So especially in Taylor, where the housing stock is older and existing housing stock is what we're dealing with right now. There's a lot of subdivisions on the horizon that we're going to talk about in a minute. But what would be purchased right now would be those existing homes, and we're not seeing that churn that normally happens in existing homes. This is happening across the Austin region. The MLS numbers showed between July 2021 and 22, those numbers in resales of homes were down 11.5%. Between 2022 and 2023, they were down 23%, an additional 23%. So that's a huge number of existing home sales that are down. Prices of homes are staying up though, because we are in a buyer's market. That top chart in the kind of top right hand, 6 months of inventory is considered a balanced market. You can see in 2021 and 2022, we were down at 0.2 months of inventory, 0.3 months of inventory. We are pushing up. We're now at 2.5 months of inventory, but that is still a significant buyer's market, which means that housing prices are staying up in the district. So that's just some economic factors. Let's talk some specifics about what's going on in Taylor. This is a list of some of the developments that are coming, but you know, we talked about the Taylor is on the cusp of large scale development, with a significant driver being the economic activity and job creation coming to the region. That's spurred by availability of land. There is a lot of large tracts of land around Taylor that are available for development, and the resources are here to support it. We're not feeling the same pressure in this area that some areas of Texas are with water resources. There appear to be sufficient water supplies for the developments that are in the pipeline currently. And then that movement of development toward Taylor as adjacent communities build out. Unique to Taylor is a factor that we don't see in most similar districts that are in this transition from kind of a rural community to a suburban community. And we've got a couple of factors that are driving this, and one of those is the Envision Taylor comprehensive plan that the city of Taylor has embraced, and the development codes that they have adopted to support Envision Taylor. The philosophy behind that comprehensive plan is called Strong Towns, and the Strong Towns movement is focused on mobility, walkable communities built around retail centers, employment centers. It is focused on making sure that a tract of land that is being developed can support itself with the cost of the infrastructure that it took to get the infrastructure in place for development. It's a very fiscally responsible way of developing a community. But what it drives is higher density. You're going to see more townhomes, condominiums, cluster style homes, multifamily built around these mixed use developments that are very walkable and have community amenities within each of these developments. Feeding into that then, we've talked about the large tracts of land that are in what is called the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city. And back in the fall, the Texas legislature created a pathway for these, for property owners to de-annex from the city's ETJ. And we have seen thousands of acres choose to de-annex from the city of Taylor's ETJ. Primarily, we suspect, and some that we actually know, because they want to develop in what has become the normal style of master planned community, suburban, residential developments. And they can do that if they de-annex from the city of Taylor. And so we're seeing mud creation out in the county. We are seeing these developments that are being spurred as they de-annex from the city of Taylor. A couple of those, Prairie Crossing is a great example of that. Prairie Crossing is the Teeman Ranch property south of Samsung. Megatel and Silicon Vistas are both still in the city limits, and they're looking at doing mixed use developments. Those developments are northwest of the airport. Castlewood is the development that is just across FM 973 from Taylor High School. And then Timmerman Ranch is south of Battleground Creek on Highway 95. This map,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Are any of those at any stage of permitting with the city?
So both Megatel and Silicon Vistas are have submitted their plans, and the zoning is already approved through the city. Prairie Crossing has already established their MUD. Castlewood is under construction, and Timmerman Ranch is in process on their MUD creation. So they are in the pipeline, all of those developments. What you can see from this map is kind of where the development is happening. It is happening more toward the western side of the district, and some of those larger developments are going to be to the south. That's where there's some large, good-sized tracts of land. The red squares are the ones that are currently underway, and the gray are the ones that are developments that are in some phase of development. So they are in conversations with the city, they are in conversations with the utility companies, they have de-annexed from the city. So there's some indication of development. These are not just, tracts of land that we look at and go, oh, that would be a great place for development. There is some indicator for us that this is a development that is in the pipeline. This next map, you can look at this as kind of a heat map on where development is coming. The first map shows year one of our 10-year projection period. Map 2 is through year 4, map 3 through year 7, and then map 4 shows us through year 10 of our development. Of course, development is always going to be subject to the constraints of the land, significant flooding or flood zones that are along the creeks that run through the district, and then availability of infrastructure, water, wastewater, and transportation infrastructure. We have to talk quite a bit about multifamily projections because of the situation with the city and how they're driving higher density of development within the city limits. We are projecting that almost 36% of total projected new housing will be in these multifamily type of developments. This is, again, just to emphasize, this is because the revenue front, they want to make sure that the burden of development doesn't fall on existing taxpayers. The burden for paying for infrastructure falls to the people that will be living in those developments where that infrastructure is serving. So this includes traditional apartments. This includes build-to-rent, single-family residential build-to-rent. Is a growing sector of development across the state. When you look at one of these subdivisions, it looks like any other single-family subdivision, but the units are built specifically by the developer for rental units. Townhomes, condominiums, and clustered cottage homes will all fall within this multifamily projection. This map again shows the ones that are in the pipeline. We have Pestwood townhomes that are leasing up currently. Then there are 2 projects that are under construction. 3811 North Main is just behind the HEB. Castlewood multifamily is across from the high school as well. And then there are 4 additional units that have their permitting at some point in the pipeline to be constructed. You can see there's a significant cluster in that area right around Taylor High School. Summary slide shows you that we have total projected new occupancies over the 10-year projection period of just over 12,400 housing occupancies. 64% of those in the single-family area, 36% in multifamily. A small percentage will be age restricted, but I will say that some of those multifamily units may actually go age restriction as they move closer to development. And then finally, this is just a different way to visualize that information, and you will see kind of the way that the growth increases exponentially throughout the 10-year period. The first 3 years, still really low growth numbers, but those numbers escalate as we move through that 10-year period.
Can I ask a question before?
You bet.
Is there a possibility, or within the report, that a lot of it, you know, Trustee Buzon asked about, you know, what's under construction, and a lot of it's like coming soon. Would it be a possibility to say plans have been submitted on this date instead of coming soon, or more, or?
We, in the appendix of chapter 3, there is a list of, do you have it, Chris, that you can kind of show them what it looks like? I'm trying to find mine. Oh, here we go. You'll see this chart in the back, and there is in the third column, fourth column over, it has a descriptor of every one of the developments. And then if you have any questions, you can certainly shoot those through staff, and we can provide additional information as needed.
Okay, then I'm going to come back and just wrap up a few slides about student projections, because that's, at the end of the day, the housing is driving the students, but the students is why we're here. So we'll look just a little bit about some of the factors that go into the student projections. All of this talking that we've done in that entire report all gets wrapped into these student projections. First of all, the birth rates, we mentioned that already, about a little bit of a continued dip for kindergarten for a little while before it turns up. Incoming kindergarten class size, you think those are the same, but if you were to have a private school or something like that come in that starts with kindergarten, then that isn't necessarily always going to be the same. Aging in existing subdivisions or regeneration. Sometimes we'll see existing subdivisions that aren't changing their number of housing units, and we'll see it up or down. We have to pay attention to that. Your cohort size. Sometimes we will see a bulge move through the district, and so all of a sudden we'll have random growth at high school, but it's because you had random growth at middle school, and before that you had random growth at elementary. It wasn't necessarily household driven or numbers of homes, it was just that's what happened. You guys actually sort of will have the reverse right now with those smaller kindergarten classes for a couple of years compared to your high school. If you do nothing but matriculate out your larger high school classes right now and replace them with smaller kindergarten, you would actually show a loss that way. And here over time, as those smaller cohorts work through, you'll have a little bit of a loss at middle school for 1 year as that small group comes through, and then in high school. So all of that has to work into the projections. Charter schools, we mentioned that. We don't see that as a big factor for you guys anytime soon. And then new housing construction, of course, is driving the most of your projections. In any 1 year, we would be looking at that gaining you around 35 kids to start, up to as many as like 900 students driven by housing toward the end of the projection period. And so this next slide is going to show the 3 scenarios of growth, a low, a moderate, and a high. And I don't want it to get a little scary out there, but we do a 10-year projection for all of our clients. We understand the first few years we would expect to be much more reliable than the last 5 years, especially in a district like yours, right on the cusp of everything. Things are going to change and ebb and flow over time. But when you all are needing to do things for your high school, for example, it may take 2 years to construct a new high school or a new secondary school. You got to back up, you got to design it, and you got to buy the land, and you got to pass the bond, and et cetera, et cetera. And so that's a very lengthy process. So we would like to know where we think we're going to head, even if the numbers aren't exactly right. So you can see here a lot of growth, of course, sitting just over 3,000 students. We use a moderate growth scenario for planning. So 5 years out, we're looking at about 3,700 students, and 5 years out from that, as many as 7,000 students in the district. But we have to, of course, assume different sets of assumptions in each one of those scenarios. And so much of the time, right now, a lot of those, for many of our clients, deal with kindergarten size, and they deal with interest rates and charter schools. So, a low growth scenario might have a charter school opening for you guys that we don't know anything about, or your birth rate continuing to go ahead and drop off after this couple of years. On the other end would be high growth, where the reverse of those things happen. But also here, you guys have this difference in the way the city is doing things, and also the possibility of land being pulled out from the ETJ. And those factors are a little bit different and going to play in the low and the high scenarios of growth here. We also project based on geocoded students, and that's a little bit different than enrolled students. For you guys, it's actually very similar. A lot of districts, though, will begin to say, cluster a bilingual program at a school, and it may be that a child lives in one zone but attends school in a different zone. And so that is something that just has to be kept in the back of our mind, that enrolled doesn't always mean resident students. But our baseline for comparison and for understanding is our resident students. And we have that data prepared by planning unit. That is our organizational scheme. You see these sorts of little blocks that Susan was showing even in the heat maps there. All of our data is organized by planning unit. The large maps, you should have the planning units on them. That table that she mentioned and showed to you right now is organized by planning unit. So that's how we keep up with things, and we have the data projected by planning unit, by year, by grade group. And so they're little puzzle pieces, and we can help the district understand if you have a site that is available that you can purchase down here, it will have X students in it in 2029 and Y students in it in 2032. And so that's what a lot of our districts will do. They'll come to us and say, we have the possibility to buy a site. Let's talk about how that might roll out. But the first thing we do then is take the data and we put it back into your current attendance zones. All of those planning units line up with your current attendance zones on purpose. And so that way we can look at what is expected to occur. If you think back to that map that Susan showed with all of the hot spots, we've got Cosman, that's where a lot of those were. And so you can see there that we're looking for Cosman to have as many as 1,800 students in it by the 10-year time frame. And it's got a capacity of around 875. So under this scenario of growth, we can have an additional 1.5 Cosmans in its zone by the end of the projection period. And then, of course, some need there in Main Street also. And so when you actually look at the entire district, this shows a little bit of capacity, and it shows the 10-year projections for each one of these. And we've highlighted some of these years in yellow. It's not, the yellow isn't when the school is actually projected to exceed capacity the first time. What we've highlighted in yellow here is 120% of capacity. And so many of our clients are growing rapidly, and so they do have to utilize temporary buildings or some form of a building that's brought in on site. But what they find is that you can stack portable buildings out there all you want to, but at some point you got to bring the kiddos inside, and they have to go to the library, and they have to go eat lunch. And at around 120% of capacity, so many of our clients tell us it gets a little dicey, and they start having lunch at 10:15 in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so that's what we've highlighted here is the 120% of capacity. And so you can see that the good news is that all of that yellow is at the latter part of the projection period. So many times clients will come to us and the whole chart is yellow. That means they're already behind the curve there. The good news, like I say, is that it's all the way out there. The bad news is it's across the board, of course. And so we can see Bosman first, needing relief, Main Street eventually. And a lot of our district clients would consider potentially maybe shifting grade groups toward the end of the projection period. Otherwise, you would have to build another EE through K center that would sit there with some empty space in it. It's possible that could be converted at some point, EE through 5. It's just going to depend on what the district wants to do with the grade groups there. But then, of course, another middle school, we're looking at 1,300 students there and a capacity of 942. And then high school, we are projecting about 2,100 kiddos there toward the end of the projection period. And that's the only one that starts to give me heartburn. Elementary schools can be built in a little over a year or 18 months. I'm sure the facilities person is saying, no, I need more time. But the high schools for sure will take a couple of years if something needs to be done. And so the good news is you can sleep a little bit, but you can't sleep too long because this is what we're looking forward to. And with that, we'll open it to other questions. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but how often is there a giant mistake like Hutto made a few years ago where they say, oh, we gotta have an elementary school, and they built this elementary school and they had to keep it empty for at least a year?
Did they have to keep it empty for M&O purposes, or because I don't know, I wasn't familiar with what Hutto did. We've had a couple of districts keep. Let's see. We had one district keep one open because they didn't pass a TRE, and keep one closed that was built because they could pass a TRE.
I think from what I understand, it had to do with capacity. The kids just weren't there. They thought they needed it, and they didn't.
Well, and so that's why what we're looking at here is kind of 120% of capacity. And so that gives you a little bit of leeway. If it slows down a little bit, or if it speeds up a little bit, so all of our districts hate temporary buildings. But the ones that are growing so rapidly have to use them because that does happen. It goes up and it goes down. The good thing, I've done this since the late 90s, tell me how old I am here, but so as a result, we've gone through a couple of 3 ups and downs. And what normally happens is the numbers may not quite work out, but the location works out. If the land is developable and has that infrastructure available, then ultimately it may push a year or something. But if you're looking at that sort of 120%, you're probably being able to see the whites of their eyes already. And it's unlikely that you're going to have one that's really truly empty.
Trustee Miller and then Trustee Hoover.
Okay.
Can we go back one slide?
Sure. Oh my gosh, now I'll be able to hear you.
Have you seen any other districts in a unique position that might be able to do some redistricting and balance out, right? So Posman's on a much faster climb, right? Would you see something that would be feasible and acceptable?
I do, and I see that sort of thing occur quite a bit. That's actually the end of the project. That's the piece that I normally pick up with. One thing, though, that will be important for the district is stability. Because as you have lots and lots of kids come in at one time, at the elementary level in particular, they are there for a long time. And so you hate to have them start in kindergarten or first grade and then get moved when they're in third grade and moved when they're in fifth grade again. And so you have to sort of balance stability versus, can I buy myself 18 more months of good use here or not? And so that's one thing that when I look at this, I go, maybe you could do a little bit of that rezoning. It's going to depend, and we'll have to watch the numbers shake out a little bit too. Good thing is you have a little bit of time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Trustee Hoover.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
First, is any of this built back into a live model so that if there were anomalies that occurred in the next couple of years, that adjustments could be made relatively quickly?
It's not live. We do, sometimes we're asked to say re-geocode the students and then sort of append the data onto them. A lot of our clients that are growing really rapidly have us revisit this data once a year. We started with Frisco ISD, and I'm not saying that is what Taylor needs to do, that we need to come back next year at all, because I don't. I think you guys are on the every other year track, maybe for a little while. But when we began working for Frisco ISD, they were about your size, and they were growing at 30% a year. And we've done an annual study for them since 1999, and but a couple of years we actually did 2, because they had a concrete plant turn into residential land, so it was odd stuff like that. It had to be revisited over and over again, because we're out there, we contact landowners and do all of this sort of thing, and sometimes we'll contact a landowner and they'll say, absolutely not, I'm not selling, I'm going to have cows on here until I drop dead, and by the time we talk to them the following year, they changed their minds.
Their children change their
Their
minds.
children talk them into changing their minds.
And my second question is, as it relates to housing, do other cities have similar, say, development plans as codes as Taylor? Do you see this as a common thing?
I'm sorry, ask-
The
Can you ask the
smart
question again?
smart housing part of the deal.
Yeah, and just as it relates to housing in general, do you have many other clients that have, similar development codes and standards, similar to this city envisioned Taylor, that have a plan similar to that?
I am not familiar with another community of the size of Taylor in Texas. Now, there are others outside of Texas where the strong towns philosophy is more prevalent, that there are, rural communities that have adopted those development standards. But Taylor is unique in that, and I think, honestly, my opinion is it's very forward-thinking, and it is very fiscally conservative, and they're kind of taking a step out there in a unique way to make sure that they are maintaining a fiscal responsibility to their current tax base.
Okay, thank you.
I know, for example, I mentioned Frisco because I have worked literally for 25 years for them, and they have in the last 10 or 12 years or so had in the city a heavy emphasis on multifamily, higher density. And so you'll see, it may not be exactly the sort of plan that she's talking about, but some cities do go in and put an emphasis on one thing or another.
Usually you see it as a community matures, there
Which is
tends to
what we're
be,
supposed to do.
there tends to be a shift to those mixed-use developments with multifamily. And what we're seeing in Taylor is that they're starting with that mindset. And so that is a bit unique to the community.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? We appreciate you being here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next on our agenda is the bond update.
Good evening. All right. So give everyone a little update on where we're at with construction and the bonds. So phase 2 is well underway. If you've seen right next to us here, steel is up and we're starting to see a structure, which is very exciting. You'll start to see wall framing here in the next week or two out here at MSC. Over at the high school, the slab is actually being poured this Thursday. So soon after that, you'll start seeing steel go up there as well, and things will start to get exciting, and we'll start to see the outline of the building there. T.H. Johnson renovation, so everything's happening inside behind temporary walls, but what's happening there, demo and under slab rough is complete, and they're starting wall framing over at T.H. Johnson. District maintenance is also starting framing. They've completed demo and under slab rough in. Taylor Middle School, you're going to start seeing site work over the next week or two. They're going to start digging out the dirt and bringing in select fill and building up the slab there at the middle school. So one of the things to take note of is we're right in the middle of testing season. So there's days that you may drive by a school and go, why is no one working on that building? It's because it's a test day. So there's been some days here and there where the contractors just can't work. So trying to keep the noise down and make it a good environment for the students. So you may see that over the next couple of weeks. As we walk through the schedule, you'll start to see here, Main Street and the CTE program are well underway. And then under phase 3, you've got T.H. Johnson Middle School maintenance building and Posman starting. Posman HVAC will be this summer. Posman will see the bulk of the work this summer. And then there's a little bit of work at Legacy this summer as well. But it's very minor. So next month's report, we're actually going to break this down a little further. We'll put some milestones in there for each building, so you'll kind of understand what you can expect to see next. And so we'll have that breakdown next month where we start showing a little bit more detail on each of the construction projects. Any questions on schedule and where we're at before we move into budget? I'm sure the demographer report was about as much as data as you can handle for the bank. All right, so program summary. As you'll see, once again, column E is always where we want to be looking. Our savings and overrun, we want to be balanced out. So column E is at 0, but you'll also, as we progress, you'll start to see that column C, committed, keeps growing, which means we're committing funds, signing contracts, and getting things on order. So one thing to note is the furniture POs that were approved last board meeting have not hit the committed line on this budget yet, but we will see that next month. Those letters of intent have been issued, but once we get POs, we'll commit that amount. So you'll see a large chunk go committed next month as well. Walking through, we've got general bonds. So you'll see a little more uncommitted on this one. This is where your land purchase and future design of future schools is in this. So a lot of that money still has not been committed yet because those things are not.
Posman. I'll just kind of click through these. Y'all stop me if you have any specific questions on any of these budgets. Main Street. Taylor High School. Taylor Middle. And then Legacy. And District Maintenance. So one of the things that I know we've brought up and talked about is as we're moving through, we're realizing savings. So furniture was one of the first big items where we realized quite a bit of savings over what was originally budgeted in the bond. So what we have started doing is we've sat down with Lance and Dr. Garcia, and we've started building a priority list of items that have come about during design and as we've moved through the bonds, different asks of staff and different people. And so we've started building that priority list of, okay, once we realize these savings, how might we want to spend the rest of that money? Are there things that we still feel like need to be addressed? And so we've started building that list. We've started putting rankings to those priorities, very, very rough costs, so that we can start to decide, okay, where do we draw the line? What could we afford? And this week, actually, we have a meeting with the general contractor and the design team to start talking about how do we refine those numbers a little bit and start to figure out what those items might be that we want to bring to the board at some point to add to the contract, different items. So that is ongoing right now. And leading into that, a few photos before I go much further. So there's steel at Main Street, roofing at Taylor High. So leading into the priorities, one of the things we were asked to look at that the staff felt was a pretty high priority was flooring and painting at Posman. So if you'll remember, we accepted some alternates on phase 1 to do flooring and painting at T.H. Johnson in the cafeteria, and that kind of completed the main public areas of that school. MSE, we're getting a brand new cafeteria, which will have all new paint and flooring, and we'll have all new paint and flooring in all the main areas after that's complete. Posman was the one school where we didn't quite have that equity, where we did all of the hallways and main corridor areas last summer. Looks great, but we've got the cafeteria area that still has the old flooring, old paint. I don't know if y'all can see from this picture, but if you remember, all of the little fur downs on the ceilings in the Posman are real bright primary colors and that sort of thing. So doesn't quite match the new color schemes that the design team has brought forward. So the team asked us to go ahead and get the price for doing the flooring and paint in that area, and that would kind of complete all the public main areas at Posman. And so they're asking that the board approve a change order of $130,842 to wrap that scope into the work and complete that area of Posman. Any questions about that change order?
It'll be the same type of flooring that's throughout the rest
So it'll
of
be
the
the
building.
same flooring, paint scheme, all of that, so it'll match all the way through. Schedule is still a little up in the air, so the contractor's working through right now. They have a large scope of work to complete this summer, and so they're trying to work through material and manpower and what scopes they think they can fully complete over this summer. And so we've been talking about, they may be able to come in here and do the painting, but have to come back over fall break or Christmas break and complete the flooring or something like that. They're kind of working through with their contractors how much manpower, because of course all schools do this during the summer, and a lot of their subcontractors they work with do a lot of school work. So trying to kind of flush that out. Questions on that? Okay. And then the last item is the approval of EMA Engineering and Consulting for commissioning and test and balance services. So this is something that's required in a construction project. Building code actually says you have to do a minor amount of commissioning, and design teams ask for that. Essentially what commissioning is they're coming in and they're back checking the install of HVAC systems and making sure that they match plans and that they functionally work. And it's just kind of a double check. It's not like a city inspection that they install it per the code, but does it functionally work and match the plans? And so, and then test and balance is essentially going through and making sure all of the vents are putting out the right amount of air that's listed on the plan. So this was something that was budgeted, but we're asking to approve that proposal by the
Yes.
And this is specific only to HVAC, no other mechanical systems or any?
Correct. Yeah, it's just HVAC. There was no
Mechanical systems.
Yeah, it's mechanical systems.
And this was a budgeted item, though, correct?
This was a budgeted item. It came in slightly higher than what was budgeted, and we're still looking at some potential savings. So we've been talking to the engineer about possibly actually moving test and balance back into subcontractor scope, because they use third-party services anyways and give us independent reports. And so we may check on that to see if there's a little bit of savings to move to that. But this would be a not to exceed number. So the board would be approving that amount. If we're able to realize some savings there, we'll be able to do that. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.
All right, early childhood literacy. You have to honest distribution. And team.
We're not friends.
So, good evening, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Garcia. I'm Abby Turner, your Director of Teaching and Learning, and so I'm here today with lots of friends to talk to you about the fun stuff learning. We're talking about early childhood literacy and our new phonics system, UFly. And so first, before we start, I did want to give you all some update. You've seen this data before for the T.H. Johnson pre-K. This was in the state of the district that Dr. Garcia shared earlier in the year, but I wanted to remind us where we are with our pre-kindergarten students as we talk through early literacy. So for pre-kindergarten, at the beginning of year, when we talked about phonological awareness, 75% of our kids were in need of support. And by middle of the year, we reduced that number to 29%. So 71% of our kids are on track for phonological awareness. Math, we started out pretty high with only 22% of our kids needing support, but that was also greatly decreased to 7% by middle of year. So I'll be excited to see where that is at end of year. So now it's going to grades kinder through second. I want to take us back and look at a little bit of last year's data. So looking at last year's data, so this is the 22-23 school year. We looked at grades kinder, first and second, and we saw that by the end of the year, 50% of more our students were not achieving benchmark. So we were at those were below benchmark or well below. So we knew what we were doing was not what we needed for kids. Kids have to be able to read by the time they leave second grade, or it's going to be tough as we switch to third grade where we're not learning to read but reading to learn. And so it's really, really important that we lead early literacy and have a strong background. And so that is where the team decided to implement UFly. And so Ms. Travazis is going to share with you a little bit about what that is.
Hi, I'm Cindy Charles, and I'm the Early Childhood Specialist currently at T.H. Johnson. So, well, I am at T.H. Johnson, Taylor ISD. I want to take a few minutes tonight to talk about the University of Florida Literacy Institute, also known as UFly. The UFly program is newly implemented this year for our littlest ducks, and we have already seen great results, especially in kindergarten. UFly dedicates itself to fostering decoding for breaking down words through explicit and systematic instruction. This structure ensures that students move through the curriculum in a layered manner, building upon their skills to be successful readers. This program places a strong focus on active student engagement and hands-on learning, which is crucial for effective instruction in early education. Students are provided with opportunities to apply their learning through various activities such as reading, spelling, and engagement with connected text. By implementing this, students leave each year with a deeper understanding of phonics and how to apply those skills to thrive as the amazing little readers that they are all becoming.
So looking at where we are currently, so this is our MOY data that happens around Christmas time. We took our beginning of year, of course, the start of school. Then by Christmas for kindergarten, we saw some tremendous growth. So looking at this chart, you can see that our students who were above benchmark, so doing really well, doubled from 14% to 28%. We also saw a decrease in our students who were below benchmark or well below. So you can see that orange and the red went down and we are in that double digit mark. And so we are very excited to see this progress in our kindergarten readers. If you go to our next slide, we're looking at first grade. So one thing, first grade, we're staying about the same. And so this is an area that we are working very hard to give a lot of attention. They came in, they didn't have UFly last year, so the students are new to the program. We also know we have to have a really strong plan for professional learning with these teachers. So we're working with Dr. Williamson, Ms. Travazis, Ms. Proctor, Ms. Pierce, Ms. Levy, and making sure those first grade teachers are getting a lot of support in the implementing of the phonics program in the second semester. And then if we look at second grade, we're again seeing some growth here. Not as much as we saw in kinder, not as big of a celebration, but we're on the right track. So when we're as far behind as we are, we need our growth to be double digits. These kids have to be able to read by the time they leave second grade. But what we know from looking at that kindergarten data is we picked the right tool. We feel very, very confident that the UFly program works. It's based on the science of teaching reading. It comes with very, very heavy research, and we see it working really well in kindergarten. So our action plan is strong professional learning, strong monitoring, lots of teacher support, so to make sure we get those same results in first and second grade. And so with that, I wanted to let Mr. Bashi, Ms. Reynolds, and Ms. Jakes talk to us about what's happening in their classrooms and the success they've seen.
Good evening, board. Dr. Garcia. Just wanted to come out here, and I really wanted to share, my background is with teaching students phonics in students who are struggling to learn to read, and also students who had dyslexia. I want to make the point. So my passion is to lay a strong foundation with phonics and to build strong readers. That's where I'm coming from with this. This brings a lot of excitement to me to be able to come share this with you. I enjoy watching students learn to grow and to read. Wanted to point out that we saw more growth this year from BOY to MOY than last year. Abby did a good job of sharing that. But the percentage of students that are experiencing high growth and the percentage of students that are reading at grade level, it's improving farther and faster, and there are more of them than we've seen in a very long time. And it's in large part, I believe, to what we're doing here with UFly. Wanted to introduce to you, we have Ms. Jakes and also Ms. Shannon. Let them kind of tell you a little bit about what they're seeing in the classroom from the boots on the ground perspective.
So for me, this is my 9th year teaching kindergarten, my 5th year here in Taylor, and I've seen a huge jump from how my kids read last year to this year. I really like that UFly, when we're introducing letters and sounds, we're also teaching our kids how to blend and segment and read and write words.
Hi, Lauren Jakes, kindergarten teacher at TH. I really like UFly. I feel like the kids also love it. They look forward to it every day. It's fun, engaging, interactive. Like Abby mentioned, it's based on the science of teaching reading. So we know that the research is there. For me, I like that a first-year teacher can walk in and follow the same lessons that a seasoned teacher could. So I feel like it's really rigorous in what we're presenting to the kids. And like they've all mentioned, we've seen a lot more growth faster in the year than we have in years past. So I feel like we're on the right track with that.
And we're teaching them how to read literally 3 weeks into school. I mean, like right away we're teaching them how to read, which is awesome.
So with that, we would like to open it up to any questions you may have for us.
So, congratulations on the hard work. Greatly appreciate that. You all understand how important reading is for long-term success for the kids. Just out of curiosity, does that program have any kind of like a home component that it has, or it's integrated so that when the kids are off in the evening or whatever, there's.
Yes, we do. We do send home our UFly homework, and we make little boards that mimic the boards we have at school that we use with them, and we send that home with their homework, and it has explicit instructions on what the parents need to do with the kids every night.
It also kind of explains for the parents, you know, the different skills that we're teaching in school, and each skill has a little blurb for parents to understand what those verbs mean.
And UFly is also free. So the parents have the website, they can go on the website, they can look at the slides, and they can review what they learned that day.
There's apps. We just discovered a couple weeks ago that there is an app that you could put on the iPad that is the exact board that we use in the classroom.
So they don't have a computer at home, they can.
We print out and send home the board and whatever materials they need, as well as their Heartword cards also go home with them.
There's also the printable decodables.
Yes, yes.
Hey, and maybe I'll say it and I missed it. What did y'all use last year?
Foundations.
Okay. And so you think this is
It's a
more
lot better.
successful?
A lot better.
The reason it really jumps in and starts moving a lot faster, that's what they were saying. They're teaching not only letters and sounds and isolation and just to mastery, they're blending and segmenting. The kids are putting the sounds together to read words and then just also learning those phonemic awareness skills right from the get-go.
Because with Foundations, we were just like teaching 3 letters a week, and that's all we were teaching. With UFly, you're teaching letters, but you're also teaching how to read those letters within words. And so it moves a little bit quicker, but yeah, right.
So second part of that question, so how long did y'all use Foundations?
Uh,
How much experience did you have with it? Any-
I did it for 4 years.
We've
I'd
used
say
it
about a
about
decade.
5 years.
Okay. And so this is hands down, you're already sold on it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the struggles with Foundations is the professional learning is expensive and hard to find. So it's hard to keep a sustainable model of well-trained teachers as we hire.
If I could, I just want to add something really quick. Foundations was started, I guess, like with Dr. Willie and Mr. Brown were here, and the Foundations is a program that is set that is intended for readers that struggle. And so it's very good if you want to do like what they're talking about. They did 3 letters at a time for kids that are struggling, but it doesn't address in a timely fashion kids the way that they're talking about. That makes sense.
Like it would be better used as an intervention, whereas like UFly is pushing even your higher kids further instead of stunting them with just learning 3 letters a week for the
Right,
first half
I
of
get
the
it.
school year.
If you don't need a slower program,
Yeah.
you're gonna get bored. And,
Oh yes, for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Trustee Hart.
Actually, I guess everyone went around what I was gonna ask. So obviously you have kids at different levels or starting at different levels. So do you find that this engages them right away and maybe not have to go to 3 letters or do anything like that, kind of an intervention for them? Do they?
Yes, I feel like even our lower students are catching on quicker and they're knowing their letters and sounds quicker.
And it does have some spiral review built in with it. You know, after we say teach so many letters or whenever we're getting further into the year, it does have like short vowel reviews, long vowel reviews. So after we teach that for about a week or 2, it will spiral back and have us review that with them before moving on.
And like we're already teaching, I mean, I've been teaching for 9 years. I've never taught ED. Mr. Rosas was in my room today, and I was teaching my kids at the ending ED. And in kindergarten, I've never taught that. And we're already teaching that to our kids now with that, and I feel like that's amazing.
We had to go and buy, what was the first grade level code files for kindergarten because sounds we'd never introduced before in kindergarten. We didn't have the sounds, we had to go buy more.
Just listen, everything's great.
I was just gonna say that coming in just a few months ago, one of the first things I checked for and asked was, what is our phonics program? And so I was really happy to hear about this program, and I had the opportunity to walk classrooms across our campuses, and I was really excited to see the consistency, the alignment, teachers taking ownership, the professional development that was planned and executed, and you know, seeing those kids in red below benchmark, we have some work to do. You know, we're not going to stop until our kids are at that benchmark or above benchmark. And so we have to close those gaps right now. That is critical. Every year that our kiddos go in below grade level or below level is the gap continuing to widen. So we're going to be, as Abby talked about, looking at those double-digit gains. It's going to be all hands on deck. We have a team of support. Most importantly, I'd like to just thank the teachers. Your voice matters. And I really appreciate your feedback on this program. And thank you for being the cheerleaders on your campus as well and showing the great games. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. So, any other questions? I want to share a story with you guys. First of all, I appreciate you getting us the slides in preparation to our meeting because it helps us tremendously when we get our updates from Dr. Garcia. So I was attending a fundraiser over the weekend, and not only was I asked about the bond, several community members are like, "Oh, what are you guys looking at academically?" I said, "Well, look, when we put together our leadership profile for our superintendent, that was our number one focus." I said, "If you have time, I want you to log on because some of the information that's going to be provided to the trustees on the lowest level of our kiddos, our little ducks, is going to be presented, and it's all positive." So, and I'm getting chills talking about this. So, I appreciate you guys giving that. We're going to spread the news of the successes that we're having, and we just look forward to continued success. So, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, going forward, efficient financial stewardship. Jenna?
Good evening. Today we are presenting just a glimpse of the options that we have for next year's compensation. So to begin with, I just wanted to show where we're at as far as the timeline on our budget. We are currently reviewing the staff stipends and raises. And what we are going to be covering tonight is just to consider the factors that are influencing our budgeting process right now, and then again to review the pay increase options. The factors that are influencing the budget process are enrollment, expected ADA, increase in the value, the appraisal district's value, and those will be certified on April the 25th. We also anticipate the TRS care rates, the insurance rates will be released on May the 2nd by TEA. We also will, in July, TEA will release the maximum compressed rate. It's not expected to be as significant as it was last year, but they will release that in July. The other thing is we're trying to do a comparison to neighboring districts is a little odd right now because not all have released. Over the weekend, I understand that Pflugerville and Round Rock did release what they were going to be expecting to give their staff raises on. But again, I'm just basing what we knew as of Friday. So the next slide shows a listing in order vertically what we anticipate if we give a 1% raise. The estimated budget impact is just over $500,000. The 2% is $800,000. And a 3% would be just over $1 million. Below that is showing what the effect would be for our teacher scale. So our first year at 1% would be $52,520. On up through, if we gave it 3%, a starting teacher would be $53,560. And again, you're only eligible as an employee if you've been here for 90 days on your prior assignment. So brand new to the district, teachers would start at that new rate. The differences between each percentage is on the first year is 520 for each jump, 5th year is 543, and the 10th year is 603. All right, so the next slide is just giving you to illustrate what Taylor ISD's rating is, or ranking as far as compared to other districts. This is looking as if each group, and I'm looking at Taylor, Hutto, Pflugerville, Thrall, and Round Rock, if they were all to give 1% raises, this is where Taylor would fall in that grouping. And as we know, Round Rock, which is listed in blue, Pflugerville, that's listed in purple, both gave raises. And if I look at the 1%, there's no ranking change at all with Taylor ISD. We're still, for the first year, we would be 4th, 5th year would be 4th, 10th year is 2nd, which is beautiful. If I go down to the 2% grouping, there is no change for the first year teachers. 5th year, no change except for Pflugerville will be 1st, Round Rock 2nd. But as far as the 10th year, if Taylor was to give a 2% raise, we would be 1st in the ranking. Round Rock would be 2nd, highest paid, and 3rd would be Pflugerville. Moving down to the 3% increase, again, not much change on the 1st and 5th year teachers' pay, but on the 10th year, again, Taylor ISD would be ranked 1st, higher paid out of all. Round Rock would be 2nd, and Pflugerville would be 3rd. Yes, ma'am.
Jen, are these across the board percentages? It's not off the midpoint, correct?
It is on the midpoint.
Okay.
Yes. Any questions about this slide? Okay, moving on. What is next? We will set the baseline revenue once we have the information from Wilco, and then we will proceed on to the next. Any questions?
I have one. Is it possible that we could look at maybe not a percentage increase, but doing it as a lump sum retention stipend instead of a base pay increase?
Yes.
Just to see how the numbers would work out.
And what range were you thinking?
I think you could probably run the sensitivity at the 1, 2, 3, or the numbers you have there.
Okay.
Just to see, because when we increase the base pay, it makes you run into budget issues next year. And with the base pay increase, then everything rolls forward as an increasing amount. Whereas if we did a lump sum, the teacher would still see the same amount of money in their pocket for the year. So I was just thinking if that's maybe something we could look at or consider.
But with the understanding that, this may not happen every year.
Yes.
Right.
That's, sustainability is the thing that we need to look at, or I think so. I mean, what I don't want to happen is that it be an expectation every year, so.
But Mr. Buzon, you're saying in lieu of, instead of giving a raise to give a stipend? Okay.
And plus, 2025, 2026, we might be in a better position.
Yes.
Just depending on when the tax rolls come in, and I'm just trying to think, this year feels like it's gonna be a super, super tough year. And I don't want the teachers to feel unappreciated. They've done a lot of great work. But at the same time, I think it's from that fiscal responsibility perspective, if there are things we can do to help us in the next coming years, maybe we can make something up in the future years.
Yes, we can do a model for sure. Yes.
That's all.
Just from experience, the midpoint just wreaks havoc on a teacher's thoughts. I mean, I can't explain it. Maybe I could write that out sometime and make you know, but there's just something aggravating about midpoint.
So the midpoint is basically on our CPP and our MT. It wouldn't be for the teacher. They're basically right off the scale. And the teacher's increase is a little bit more than the 1%. If it was a 1%, it's about 1.9 when you, after you step them up, and if you take an average of all those steps, because it's, you know, there's different steps. Each teacher has their own
This
step.
needs to come with a lot of explanation, because there's just a lot of negativity about
Okay.
it.
Do y'all do this?
I mean, I guess I don't, yeah, teachers don't have midpoints, period, so that's why I don't understand where and I'd like to learn, but given that that happens to me working for a school district, I mean, I understand the midpoint, yeah, it doesn't affect teachers the way other people don't understand midpoint, who have one, but yeah, it doesn't affect them, so.
But Ms. Tennell, I think you're right. We did talk, last year's was a midpoint on 18 years for teachers, and that was their base. It seems like that's what they called it, but this year it isn't.
Yes. Trustee Mitchell. Listen, Jim, I kind of like your stipend part at the same time. I like the raise part as well. Top employees. What we don't want to do is don't do nothing. We want to do something. I realize a tough year, just like everybody else sitting up here. This is, in my opinion, this is the time where as board members can let the whole staff and teachers, administrators, custodians, bus drivers, whatever, everybody involved with Taylor ISD, all employees, it's the time to show them their appreciation. It's gonna be tough year next year, the hell of life is tough. So we wanna do what's best for them. I don't like that 1% crap. I hate for us to start lowballing. Mike can't do the top, some will come right in the middle. And let the people know we appreciate it. That's where I stand on the money part thing.
So I do want to bring up something real quick, that Jen and I were talking with Dr. Garcia. So with the budget, because we're actually moving a lot quicker than anticipated, and I know how my time is valuable. Right now, we have tentatively 3 meetings scheduled for June, but we think we probably don't need to have a budget workshop on June 3rd. And then if we move our regular meeting from the 17th to the 24th, we can go ahead and have a regular meeting and approve the budget all at one time, so we're only having 1 meeting in June. But that would require us moving our current board meeting, regular meeting on the 17th to the 24th. Just think about that. Dr. Garcia, if you could put that in the board update at the end of the week, that way, like I said, you know, we're not looking for a superintendent anymore, so we can just have 1 meeting a month. I appreciate that.
Like, please, thank you, Marco.
I know, sorry. I had you in mind. Are there any other questions on the budget? Jenna, do you think you can have that information in May for us?
I will.
The stipend and.
Yes, we'll run this next couple of weeks.
Okay.
We'll start researching as
Okay.
well.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions, or are we able to move on? All right. Next, announcement. So prior to the trustee election, the board president announces board member training credit hours. All right. So I have a script here. All right. Under State Board of Education rules, completing required continuing education each year of service is a basic obligation and expectation of any sitting board member. As board president, I am required to announce the name of each member who has completed the required continuing education, has exceeded the required continuing education, and is deficient in meeting the required continuing education. These requirements are measured as the first anniversary of the date of the trustee election or appointment, or 2-year anniversary of his or her previous training is applicable. The 8 training areas are local district orientation, orientation to the Texas Education Code, post-legislative update to the Texas Education Code, team building, additional continuing education, evaluating student academic performance and setting goals, identifying and reporting abuse, trafficking, and other maltreatment of children, and school safety. To the extent applicable to each board member, I will announce the completion or deficiency as required for training. We all do not need local district orientation or introduction to Texas Education Code. So here we go. School safety, Trustee Bullock, complete. Trustee Carter, complete. Trustee Buzan, complete. Trustee Miller, complete. Trustee Ortiz, complete. Trustee Tennell, complete. Trustee Mitchell, complete. Evaluating and improving student outcomes, Trustee Wallach, complete. Trustee Carter, complete. Trustee Buzan, complete. Trustee Miller, complete. Trustee Ortiz, complete. Trustee Tennell, complete. Trustee Mitchell, complete. Post-legislative updates to TEC, Trustee Wallach, complete. Trustee Carter, complete. Trustee Buzan, complete. Trustee Miller, complete. Trustee Ortiz, complete. Trustee Tennell, complete. Trustee Mitchell, complete. Child abuse prevention, Trustee Wallach, complete. Trustee Carter, complete. Trustee Buzan, complete. Trustee Miller, complete. Trustee Ortiz, complete. Trustee Tennell, complete. Trustee Mitchell, complete. Team building sessions, Trustee Wallach, complete. Trustee Carter, complete. Trustee Buzan, complete. Trustee Miller, complete. Trustee Ortiz, complete. Trustee Tennell, complete. Trustee Mitchell, complete. I'm gonna announce the continuing education credit, and then if you're exceeded or incomplete. Trustee Wallach, 7 hours, exceeds. Trustee Carter, 7.25 hours, exceeds. Trustee Buzan, 5 hours, complete. Trustee Miller, 6 hours, exceeds. Trustee Ortiz, 32 hours, exceeds. Trustee Tennell, 5.25 hours, exceeds. Trustee Mitchell, 6 hours, exceeds. All right, appreciate your time, trustees. Thanks for keeping up with the training. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the regular meeting, March 25th, 2024, tax report, monthly financial report, quarterly investment report, purchasing approval, approved scholarship committee for 2023-2024, MPE cafeteria change order, HVAC commissioning, and test and balance. Is there any item that a trustee would like to remove for further discussion? Seeing there is none, I'll open a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Motion by Cheryl, second by Mr. Shorty. All in favor, raise your right hand. Anyone opposed, do the same. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, trustees. All right, new business, item 10, new business, science adoption. Ms. Turner.
Hi, good evening once again. So I would like to share with you a little bit about our science adoption. Again, this is tied to our scorecard 1.1, making sure we refinement of curriculum, instruction, and professional development. Ms. Burris was part of our committee, and so she is here today to also share her perspective on the science adoption. So right now we are in the middle of Proclamation 2024. So that is where, going into next school year, we will have new science standards, K through 12. So all across the state, school districts are investigating, researching, and adopting new science curriculum. And so we have started that, and it will all go into our students' hands next fall in the 2024-25 school year. So the process that we led is we started in November, really getting our teacher leaders the opportunity to go to Region 13, see everything that's out there, just look at everything, see what we like. December, February, we got samples to everybody's hands in their classrooms with them. In March, we had it narrowed down to 2, so we had the 2 vendors come, present to all of our teachers. They discussed, we had a rubric, voted, and then in April, we're here to present to you, and then in August, we'll start training and implementing the program. So things that we considered as we look through it is it has to be 100% aligned to the TEAC. It needs to be rigorous. It needs to be approved by the State Board of Education, making sure that we're on the list of what they would like us to use. Sustainable, we want to make sure we can afford it long-term, and appropriate for all learners. So our high kids, our GT kids, our emergent bilinguals, our students receiving special ed services, we want to make sure we find a resource that supports all of our students. And so our final 2 was Texas Science and STEM Scopes. Those were the 2 who came and presented to us. We had a very deep conversation. We had teachers from all campuses, all grade levels there to be able to have their vote. And then we took our vote and 100% consensus voted to choose McGraw-Hill Texas Science. And so I would like, and then the total cost. So the cost for what we're talking about today are our print materials. So that's digital access and student consumable workbooks for 4 years for grades K through 11, and that cost will be $274,600.05. You do have a packet here that goes through what the program overview is for grades kinder, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. I also, though, would very much like Ms. Burris to talk through. She has been a passionate advocate for Taylor Science this year, and I'd like her to share her perspective from a teacher at this resource.
Hi, good evening. One of the things I did when I came here was hit the ground running with the new adoption. The TEKS are changing. It's going to hit middle school a little harder than it's going to hit the elementary. So I went to the vendors showcase. I went to CAST. I've talked to multiple vendors. My choice was between McGraw-Hill and we currently have STEMscopes. McGraw-Hill caught my eye because it is teacher friendly. It's a one-stop shop. The new teachers coming in won't have to worry about finding the TEKS, unpacking the TEKS, all the things that go into a lesson plan to teach science. Another thing that caught my eye between STEMscopes and this one is when we're on our Wi-Fi, and we've talked about upgrades to Wi-Fi, STEMscope seems to just keep rolling, and it won't click over for the kids to, they're like, what do I do now? It's kind of stuck. So with this one, you can download the app, you can download what you're doing, and you don't have to have a Wi-Fi connection. So that also takes you to a home connection that they have here. About compatibility for them to use at home, at school, the sources that come with this, the games that can come along with the learning, the rigorous STAR 2.0 questions are there. It's built for Texas. It has videos of places some of the kids have never been to in Texas. So when you talk about a coastal beach, it takes them to the beach. So, and surprising enough, a lot of kids have not even been to the aquifers. They don't know what that is. So that was one of the things was my main point. It was with the technology, it's wonderful, but when it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I'm a member of a couple of science places, and it's been a forum. There's a lot of people who talk about McGraw-Hill being their top choice. STEMscopes has been around for years. One of my main concerns with STEMscopes was the rigor was not there. They hadn't had a chance to upgrade to the STAR questions. That was one thing that they were still putting in place. And one more big thing with McGraw-Hill is their language is already there. Multiple translations from Spanish, there's Korean, it's all there. It's over 200 languages, I believe they have already in their database. McGraw-Hill's still, STEMscopes is just working on Spanish and not with professional. They're getting it from teachers. So that was another big thing.
So one thing that was very important to us is Dr. Garcia, some of the feedback she heard on our listening tour was making sure teachers are involved in these decisions, that we have enough resources, we have adequate resources, and we have adequate professional learning on the resources. And so that is part of why we did the long plan, to make sure every teachers had the opportunity to have a voice, principals had the opportunity to have a voice, and so Ms. Harris was an important part of that process. But we want to make sure our teachers were part of this decision, and because they're the ones who are going to be using it with kids, so they have to love it.
I might add one more thing I forgot. You can adjust their reading level to their lexical level for higher, lower. So it touches all of that for the lower learners. It takes the digital book to their language. Not very much is noticed in the difference. It's just the vocabulary words that they're using. So it flows a little easier. Everything is built in for them.
We're really excited about the resource and the curriculum, and the team is already working on mapping out all the units. And we're going to be doing a lot of more intentional work with that in June. But we're really excited to get these resources into our kids' hands as well as our teachers. And if you go back one slide, I love this. This is one of my favorite parts of this whole important timeline, is that we had 100%, and I have not seen that, by the way, ever, with the curriculum adoption, where we had every single teacher on board. So I'd like to thank the committee. Thank you for your rich discussions. Thank you for the late night evenings. Thank you for taking the time to go to CAST. Appreciate you being here, Ms. Burris. Thank you.
I do have one question, unless somebody else has a question. I see you got 100% from the committee. Are there others, was there any, what are the other teachers that may have not participated on that committee saying, are they excited?
So I took our samples because I brought a lot of samples home with me. One of the things that they liked about this, it's just open and it's there. Because I'm going to tell you the truth, science, but for the little ones, you got to go. You got to do it quickly because they're focused on reading and math. You get to 5th grade, that's the start. That's the first STAR test for 5th. So there's a deficit in their learning. So it's got to be easy for these teachers to do, or it's going to kind of just be read and go. This is all unpacked for them. You don't have to be a science teacher to understand what's going on. So I gave it to our 1st grade teachers. 2nd, 4th looked at it. 4th grade, Mr. McAdams has been with me going to learn the new TEKS, the alignment of the new SEPs and the RTCs that we're going to have to come up and distribute at a workshop or when we get back to school. So,
well, you mentioned it's easy, because the thing that caught my attention is, like, if it's easy, then that means like a sub would be able to go in there and, okay.
It actually has like these cool things where you can make your own videos for when you have a sub. They have their videos and you can just input your questions, and so the kids can keep rolling. One of my favorite things about it too, for the ease of use, that got our kinder and 1st grade teams really liked, is they highlight, if you only have 90 minutes over the course of a week to teach, how can you successfully teach 100% of the standards with that amount of time? So that's always been a struggle for early science. We have to teach early science. Kids deserve that knowledge. Our tests are cross-curricular. They're going to be reading about Epworth's Aquifer on the 4th grade STAR test. They have to have that background knowledge. And so this makes it to where we can effectively implement science and get that knowledge to our kids.
I think Trustee Carter has a question.
I just have a comment. Thank y'all again, after Dr. Garcia saying thank you for what you do. Ms. Burris, I can hear your passion, and thank you so much for what you've done, especially on this project and everything. It's gonna be great. Thanks a lot. I don't know, it just kind of touched me just listening to you talk about it, so.
Well, we're a testing subject and you got to make that fun because,
yeah,
you know,
so,
your test, we've only done math and reading, and now there's a science one.
Yeah.
So, you know, science is fun. Science is a blast.
Thanks a lot.
So.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on agenda is the annual approval of the T Foundation.
So the district has been working closely.
Don't need to vote on that.
I was gonna say just a couple things and then.
Do we need to vote on the science adoption?
Oh, yes.
Do we? Okay.
You is new business.
Okay. Thank you, Anita. So are there any other questions, so we can take action? So, I'm open to a motion to approve the science adoption as presented.
I so moved.
I'll second. Motion by Anita, second by Shorty. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Anyone opposed, do the same. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, trustees. Thank you, Anita. Item B, annual approval of the T Foundation MOU. Dr. Garcia.
Yes, sir. So the district has been working closely with the T Foundation to look at the MOU. And so we have some revisions, and the biggest change that you'll see is that the foundation will have direct responsibility of recruiting, employing, and managing the executive director. So that is one of the largest changes. And I'd also like to thank the T Foundation for their efforts in partnering with us, in providing teacher grants to our teachers that help our students. A lot of time and effort goes into the T Foundation with our fundraising, and so we are really appreciative of their work, and I wanted to bring this forward with that adjustment tonight.
Are there any questions? I see that Mr. Schrader's here to answer any questions. Do we have any? Are there any questions?
I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
All right, Anita. Seeing that those questions for the T Foundation MOU, I'm going to put a motion to approve the annual approval of T Foundation MOU.
I make a motion to approve annual for T Foundation MOU.
Motion by Short, second by Jim. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, raise your right hand. And when opposed, do the same. Motion carries 6-0 and 1 recusal. Thank you, trustees. Next on agenda is discussion of local legislative priorities. Dr. Garcia.
So as we approach the upcoming legislative session, TASB has brought forward some resolutions for Board of Trustees across Texas to look at. And the Region 13 held a meeting called the Grassroots Legislative Priorities Meeting just a few months ago, where superintendents and trustees got together and put together some priorities as a region. I wanted to bring forth some of those items, and I'd like to kind of read out what those top 6 are from the region. The first one is looking at teacher recruitment, retention, increased salaries. The second is increasing the basic allotment for every student. The third is opposition to school vouchers and education savings accounts. The fourth is funding based on student enrollment. The fifth, increased support for special education services. And the sixth is a reduction and/or overhaul of required state tests. And so as we're meeting in superintendent groups, one of the things that we talked about is really nailing down 1 or 2 top priorities within our local area, just to send the message and show unity in some of these legislative priorities. And so as a superintendent group, we've talked about increasing the basic student allotment, which would also go to help further programs, help teacher salaries. It would just basically help our overall school functions and district functions. And then we've talked about opposition to school vouchers and education savings. Our kids do have school choice, our families do have choices, and so we would like opposition, and we feel that that would be taking funding away from our public schools and hindering what we're trying to do here. And so I wanted to open up the floor to the trustees just to get your thoughts and opinions, if any of these legislative priorities, hold higher than the other with each of you here tonight.
Yes,
Unfortunately, we couldn't put 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Yes, they're all
I mean,
good.
seriously, every single one of them is so important.
Trustee Luzon.
So the increasing in the basic allotment and the funding based on student enrollment kind of go hand in hand a little bit, right? Because what we want to be able to do is have always be the funding based on enrollment and not attendance. But at the same time, we want the per child expenditure or allotment to go up. Can those be combined where you can almost kill 2 birds with 1 stone in any way? Or legislatively, are they just considered 2 separate to try to?
I can look at the board resolution to see the specifics on that.
Matter of fact, I was wondering if we could manage to get 3 bullet points instead of 6. But if there was a way to.
So looking
write
at
the language.
the basic allotment and looking at, instead of attendance, ADA having based on.
My fear is that the legislature's they're gonna.
Either or.
Yeah, they're gonna say, okay, we're gonna let you do it based on enrollment, but we're gonna allow your allotment. So you're gonna end up with the same amount of money. So to me, that's kind of not an either or, but a both and. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
so much to say about vouchers that I couldn't even get started.
But one thing that I think is our responsibility is to have so much information to share with anybody who will listen to us. And to also somehow sneak in there all the things that they should know that they're not being told. To me, that's the most important thing. They are not being told so many things. All these people who think they're for it. If they really knew some of the things. And so I don't know why we can't share that.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're all super important, but that, you know, the first one, right, the recruitment, retention, increased salaries are, I mean, people are leaving the profession like across the board, nationwide, statewide, even in our own district, so we've gotta do something creative and unique about that, like, I mean, the military gets away with giving a housing allowance, a housing stipend that's tax-free, right? Like, you know, can ISDs do anything like that?
Austin.
I mean, I'm looking at you, but I mean.
Austin is providing.
They're giving tax-free stipend.
Well, they're doing some creative things with rent.
Well, if you look at a basic allowance for housing, like that's, yeah, it is literally the federal government gives military members, depending on your zip code and your rank, money to pay for housing.
You gotta have housing first.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
like, but if I can do it, why can't?
I know what you're saying though, and like for,
Can't we?
rent, I mean, we don't exactly have the apartment complexes here, but yes, other districts are doing, collaborating with specific complexes and giving, certain amounts that, for their employees. I was gonna say, I had my mind on something else. Well, we were just talking about, did safety and security come up on that list at all? Pushed further down? Anything about it?
It came up, because I did the LAC grassroots, it came up on a lot of other regions, and it was within the top 5 of the, whatever they agreed on. But I can't remember if we did it, if it was one of our top priorities in Region 13. But once I get here, what you guys are talking about, I'll let you know what happened over the weekend during the LAC meeting that we had.
And I'm not saying truly that that's one of my priorities, but I mean, I could see where that's still an issue, but it seems like I heard somewhere that there's ways, there's just all the paperwork and forms and ways to get funding are just so horrendous that that's why districts are not even doing it. You know, it's like money's there, but no one's touching it because of the bureaucracy to get to it, and so we're still stuck, you know, trying to comply with everything, but, Marilyn, I'm with you on vouchers, that's just a bee in my bonnet, and I'm not even gonna.
I have to take extra medication because of that.
Trustee Guzon,
So further to Joe's comment, you know, they have the Greater Taylor Foundation now. You know, one of their pillars is affordable housing. So I'm wondering if there is maybe an opportunity to interact with them in some way and see if there's a level of partnership or that we can, I don't know, maybe an opportunity to reach out locally where there's some, obviously, we need dwellings, we need rooftops for people to live, but they're trying to solve that problem as well as from a community perspective, and I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to partner with them.
are you asking to put like a bullet point to work with,
Well, I
with
think,
housing?
it's not necessarily a legislative update, but just to Joe's comment that there may be another opportunity for us to look locally, at another way of potentially addressing that housing issue that other districts may have available just because they don't have that same foundation.
Trustee Tom?
I don't want this to sound egotistical, but I do want to make a comment that I feel like one little tiny thing that we definitely need a pat on the back to ourselves for is that first one. Because I didn't think I'd ever live long enough that Taylor, if I could just live that long, wherever the demographer said, in that year, we're gonna be number one. Oh my God, because, you know, we've had that thrown down our throats my whole life. Well, Pflugerville pays and Round Rock pays, and the very idea that we're gonna be up there is just, it's beyond wonderful.
Any other comments or? So I was one of the members of our committee representing Region 13, and we got together over the weekend at TASB with all the different regions, and we talked about what our goals were, or what our legislative priorities were. Well, after everybody's speaking, there ended up being about 7 or 8 different legislative priorities that came up. And at that time, docs wanted to say, okay, let's vote and let's whittle this down. But prior to that, everybody got to speak, and I had told myself, well, I'm going to go and mention it because regardless of what I feel about vouchers and education savings accounts, we know what happened this past primary where our support for public schools has shrunk. So I look at it, when that happened, I'm already thinking vouchers and things are coming. So what are we going to do to not oppose that? So when I got up to speak, I was waiting in line, and there was a trustee from Corpus Christi who kind of mentioned the same thing. And I thought I was the only one that was going to say something. And she had mentioned that, you know, hey, look, they're coming. What do we do to oppose this? What can we do? Because it's coming. And then and when she walked out, I said, hey, Dolly, I was going to talk about the same thing. So when I got up there, I said, hey, look, let's not say we oppose vouchers. We oppose the mandates that are put on public schools that are not put on public charter schools or public or private schools. And let's level the playing field. And I was going to say a bad word. There were 3 other trustees that came up and spoke about the same thing. It's like, let's figure out what to do for vouchers. Let's not say we're opposed to them, but what are we going to do to level the playing field? If you're going to say, hey, you're going to have X amount, as President Bitchell from Pflugerville was on a conference call with them, and she was like, why are they giving funding to students that are going outside on this program, but they're not giving our students that same funding? Why are they better than our students? So if they're going to do something like that, let's level the playing field and give us the same amount. I say that because what also occurred during that meeting over the weekend is they had several trustees saying, we come every year, every 2 years and do this, and we have basically 5 priorities that we're trying to do. Let's all come together and pick maybe 1 or 2 and focus on that, because if you pick 1 or 2, you can wrap everything up into that. So 2/3 of the attendees there voted to do 1 or 2, and the 2 that we're focusing on are funding, and then the other one is local governance, because House Bills HB 1605 came up a few times, and I don't know exactly what's in it, but from what they're telling me, the TEA is wanting to dictate what kind of curriculum that the local school boards have to take. And so when you talk about local governance, that's not what we know what's best for our students. Our leadership teams know what's best for our students. So we all agreed to focus on 2 things: funding, because if we got the funding, we could take care of increased support for special education services. We can increase the basic allotment. We can do this. We can do all those things. So it's like, let's do that. Now, coming down, it's like, okay, now go to your districts, and your districts, like what Dr. Garcia is asking us, focus on what you can do. But it's one thing for us to say we have priorities, but it's another thing for us to go and say, hey, Representative Harris, here's where we're deficient. You're not giving us enough funding for this. I understand where you stand on the vouchers, but what are you going to do for us as a public school? Because if you say I'm for vouchers and things like that, but you're not doing anything to help us with our funding, what are you going to do to help us? I asked Dr. Garcia that information that she shared with us, the unfunded mandates for security. Hey, Ms. Representative Harris, are you going to help us with this? Hey, Representative Harris, are you going to help us with that? So us elected officials, if we get together, and even if it's me representing the board, sit down with our local elected officials and tell them, hey, this is where we're at, this is what we see. Our students are just as important as other students that are wanting to go do other things. So I was excited after that meeting, but I mean, like I said, it's like, do we really want to say we oppose vouchers when we can say we oppose the mandates that are pressed on public schools and they're not going to do it with the private and charter schools? So I think it's a good thing. I believe we haven't done it in a while, putting an advocacy agenda together as a board. So it'd be great to see if we can come up with something. So just share that. If you have any questions, then I might be able to answer them. I can tell you a little bit more.
Sounds like we need a marketing team. Tim, how long ago was that we had billboards?
It's been a few years.
We'll come into that.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yes,
I love that one we had out at Circleville.
Well, we'll take this feedback and look at the resolutions and look at some options. Thank you, trustees.
Thank you.
Appreciate your feedback.
There's no action on that. All right. Next thing on the agenda is personnel items for action. Trustees, is there any reason for us to go back into closed session to discuss any of items A, B, or C? Seeing that there are none, we're going to go through this rather quickly. So, item A, resignation of personnel. I'm open to a motion to approve the resignation of personnel as presented.
I so move.
I second.
Motion by Anita, second by Jim. All in favor, raise your right hand. Anyone opposed, do the same. Motion carries 7-0. Item B, election of personnel. I'm open to a motion to approve the election of personnel as presented.
I so move.
I'll second.
Motion by Joe, second by Cheryl. All in favor, raise your right hand. Anyone opposed, do the same. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Garcia.
Well, after several weeks of interviewing candidates for our Chief Academic Officer position, we have finally found Ms. Megan Zimbick. She comes to us from Casey ISD and has 20 years of experience, a deep passion for kids, for people, and most importantly, for Taylor ISD. And so she's worked at elementary, middle, and high school. She's currently an elementary school principal, but did work at a campus of over 3,000 kids at a high school as the academic dean. And so she's really seen through and through at each of the elementary, middle, and high school, all levels, and really excited to have her on board.
All right. Item C, consideration of proposed renewal receipt of contracts for certified and non-certified professional contracted staff members. I'm open to motion to approve the proposed renewal receipt of contracts and certified and non-certified professional contracted staff members as presented. Motion by Anita. Second by Shorty. All in favor, raise your right hand. Anyone opposed, do the same. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, trustees. All right, item 12, calendar, May 6th through 10th, Teacher Appreciation Week. May 11th, Temple College graduation, 10 a.m., Bell County Expo Center. May 17th, Legacy Early College graduation, 6:30 p.m., Taylor ISD Main Street Auditorium. May 20th, regular board meeting at 7 p.m. And then May 24th, THS graduation, 7:30 p.m. at Taylor Athletic Facility. All right. Item 13, suggestions of future agenda items and food for thought.
I have one.
Yes.
I see a lot of our district vehicles like in the community and so forth, and I was just wondering what level of protocol we have for approved drivers, knowing that the district's gonna get bigger. I'm sure liability over time will be increasing, but what kind of protocols, and I was wondering if we could get an update on, do we pull PRs for our employees and so forth and so on, for the drivers.
Next one, let's put that. Thanks, thanks.
Any others, or?
Ms. Patrick, did you want to mention our staff member?
Yes. This past, I guess a couple of weeks ago, we lost one of our staff members, and actually I'm gonna pitch it to Ms. Ms. Cantwell to talk a little bit about staff employees who had passed away from cancer. He's been with us for many years and was a very valued staff member at Legacy, and his wife also works for us and is the librarian at Taylor Middle School. But I do want Ms. Cantwell to add a little bit.
Matthew DeHoyas worked for Legacy for about 7 years. His wife is the TMS school librarian. He was a very large part of our school community. Over the last 2 years, as he battled cancer, our campus was still connected to him and the family. We're looking at ways to continue his legacy, so to speak, at Legacy. The student connection that he had, I mean, he was the first person that they would see every day at the front window. He committed a lot of hours of community service. He would work with ExxonMobil every summer to volunteer, and in return, they would give us a stipend, a donation to the campus for the volunteer work that he did. So he was just a very special part of our community, and so hopefully we're able to continue his legacy in different ways. Our students are already digging deep to try to find ways to just, when we walk into the school, we know that he meant kindness to us. He was a man that just meant a lot to everyone around him. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? Just to tie into the story of Mr. O'Doyle, so my kids, when they were teenagers, they actually babysat his son a couple of times when they lived here in Taylor. All right. Moving on. Closed session. As determined by the Board of Trustees, the board may recess into closed session for purposes permitted by Texas Opens Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.001, to discuss items relating to personnel, including but not limited to administrator contracts, Texas Government Code Section 551.074. Any action will be taken in the open session. At this time, at 9:08 p.m., we will exit open session.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Baby stage. Oh, you're so cute. This is my brother. We are friends.
We didn't really